Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3733 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app to your smartphone, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and it's an honor. It's been a long time coming. But I finally got a chance to connect with a gifted rhythmist who's been doing it on the bandstand for the last half century. Came up at a time before full interconnection when you were making up grooves on your own or with people, sitting around listening to your new favorite records and then extrapolating off of that to find your own individual sound. No time to waste. Harvey Hughes, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you for having me.
You know,
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a high honor. You know, we led in there with James Moore, Brothers and Sisters from 1981, you on drums. And I just wanted you to talk about your upbringing. Johnny Talbot's dad was a Pentecostal minister, and he came from the church. And I kind of wanted you to talk about your upbringing in the church because, like when I interviewed John Hendricks, for instance, he said, you know, a lot of cats, they don't, in the church, they've forgotten that the blues came out of the church. And you know, when I talked to Jabbo Starks and Clyde Stubblefield, Jabbo in particular, those rhythms that he eventually put on the kit with James Brown came from the Sanctified Church. And I kind of wanted you to talk about your experiences musically within the church.
Well, my experiences came later in my musical career, just as late as far as the last 3 years ago, But the music has changed so much since the earlier Pentecostal churches when they had music, being favored in church. These musicians nowadays are phenomenal. Their abilities to do the masterful things that they do on the kids it's bar none. But speaking to me, about me, my involvement has been based from all my musical journeys that I've had through life. And so I try to keep it, true to what I am. I don't try to step out of my art form and become something that I'm not. A lot of the things that I've seen and heard, some of these things are very artful, but I try to stay true to myself. So as I've played for the church that I performed for, I shouldn't say perform for, played for, I would always keep it basic, keep it simple, and the feel. The feel is the most meaningful part, along with time, that really touches the souls. When you're in church, that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to gather members to come closer to Christ. So it's not about a show. It's not, for me, I'm only speaking for myself. It's not from a standpoint of, trying to twirl sticks and run around the drum kit and, no. It's really all about really bringing people's hearts and spirits closer to Christ. So that would be my best approach to it. Keeping it simple and very heartfelt would be my approach.
So were you privy to some of the Holy Rollers when you were coming up and the clapping? Because the clapping.
Of course.
Yeah. So I want you to talk. This is important because those jagged rhythms of the old people were clapping on 3 and 4. They were clapping on 2 and 4. The whole thing. I want you to talk about what that experience, because the church now, not that I have been, I'm not Christian and I do not attend church, but I also know that a lot of great drummers are coming out of the church, but they're coming out with huge facility and not a ton of feel. You don't feel it. But I want you to talk about the early, Jabbo told me you had, maybe you had tambourines, some sticks, and clapping. It was a modified trap set at the most. So what did that look like for you when you were young?
Well, see, and that's the thing. For me, my first involvement was through the Church of Christ. so it wasn't any live instruments really. It would be him singing.
Right.
And so then when I actually did go to a Pentecostal church, it was like an eye-opening experience for me because I hadn't really experienced it. So they were, you know, a pretty well-rounded choir with their host of musicians. And there again, I was basically there not from a musical standpoint, but from a soul-seeking standpoint. So I was really there to get closer to Christ myself. And only later in life, as I had matured and did different things throughout my life, I wanted to give back and be a part of the music ministry. So that's pretty much my walk with it through a musical journey. I was exposed to some of it earlier in life, but I never was really a part of it musically in my younger years.
We have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this voice, see if you can identify it, and then obviously the content, and then we'll come back and break it down, okay?
All right, that's right.
Here was we went and watched the guys that we liked. I watched all our friends play, and then we would hang out. We'd get together. I mean, Harvey Hughes and I used to get together at my place in Oakland, and we'd hang and we'd play. We'd just play all day, you know, and exchange ideas. One guy would sit at the drum set while the other guy would say, well, why don't you move your hand over here? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? And then we'd kind of tag team on the drum set all day. We'd sit there and, you know, give each other little, you know, challenges to try to invent something. And we came up with some of the most nasty, cool-sounding grooves and beats. And it was just, you know, a collective mind that was going on. Everybody.
All right. Obviously, that was just to show you the journey.
David Gearbaldi.
Yeah, the journey that I've been. That was from December 8th, 2013. I've been on this journey. Been looking for Harvey Hughes for quite a while. I want you. I want you to break. So, I mean, he's talking about. A lot of peeps now. They got the headphones on. It's done in isolation. Can you talk about getting together with Garibaldi and working out these?
I can.
These crazy grooves.
But I got to start from the beginning.
Do it, yeah, please.
I loved Tower Power from the onset. When I first heard, you know, Bump City and all of that, man, I was like, who are these cats? I mean, I was like in this music heaven, and so I went as far as when I bought the album. Now, this is the funny story. I bought the album, turned it over, you know, after listening to it for hundreds of times.
Sure.
I turned it over, found the actual manager and connection to Tower Power, and called them and told them who I was and that I wanted to be in contact with the drummer, David Garibaldi. It was an amazing story how it even unfolded, but they trusted me enough to give him my number. He called me.
Oh, I love this.
And we got together.
This is Can I just ask you a question? I just want to ask you something.
Sure.
What were you at in your career when you heard something like Bump City? I mean, you know. What were you doing?
I was going for it. I was doing. I was playing a lot. I was really on the edge of funk. To the hardest degree, and I was really rooted in what I was doing. But the thing where I was coming up short was with the technical ability. So David was more technical. I was more, you know, raw, just, you know, almost like caveman funk. I mean, it was a primitive. It was primitive.
Caveman. But I mean, like what? I mean, were you already? I mean, because I'm curious. Were you already cutting jingles, or were you on records already at that point, or were you just you were in a cave?
At that point, I was doing some studio work, just minor stuff, but I was really doing clubs a lot. There was a club in Oakland.
Yeah.
That when you would get a gig there, you would be a house band for a year. And
what was the name of the club? The Cold Duck Club?
It was called the On Broadway.
The On Broadway. Okay, so so you're talking about in Jack London Square down there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Say it again.
You're talking about in Jack London Square.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you were and what was the band that you were in for that year?
The band was called Extension 5.
With Domingo.
Domingo Ballington, correct.
Oh, this is
one of the greatest lounge bands in the Bay, man. We would play everything. It wasn't a one one style type group. We played every genre of music, and we played it well.
I love it.
And so that
I love
really opened me up to a lot of different concepts, a lot of different fields. But where I really started flourishing is when I started studying drums under Chuck Brown. And there again, I ran into David Garibaldi. So when we hooked up, we kind of started being like a little, it wasn't a competition thing, but I think we kind of, we liked a little bit about each other's playing. You know, there was a lot of things about David's playing I liked, and I'm sure there was some things he took away that he liked from me.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we would do, we would just kind of like, you know, like he said, he would sit out on the kit, start a groove off or something, and then he would get up, and then I would give my interpretation of that groove. And he'd go, yeah, that's kind of cool. Why don't you, you know, play it on the 16th note on the hi-hat right here. So then I would try to do that, and then I would add another kick or something on the foot just to kind of offset it even more to make it my own. So we kept playing with it, bouncing it back. Even that one song, I'm pretty sure you may have heard it, Squid Cakes. You remember that song?
I sure do. I sure do, yeah. What about that song?
There's one little intricate turnaround before it actually goes into the song. Right from the intro, he starts to groove off, and then he does a little intricate, it's like a little turn exchange.
Okay.
I would say it like that before the beat goes into the song and the horns kick in and everybody starts playing. So we were kind of playing with that one little section in there, and he came up with something where he was doing one hit or two hits on the hi-hat, throwing the foot in at the bottom, and then kicking it back in with a lead in on the snare to the tom and a crash. And I was doing it one way, he was doing it another way. He made his sound a little bit more technical than mine, but it still worked out great. And man, when I heard that on that, I was like, boy, that boy is bad. Everything he did, I swore by it.
I want to be clear. This is extremely talking to Harvey Hughes already, having a ball here on the Jake Feinberg Show. But so on Broadway, I mean, you had cats like Dean Chapralease there who had like a tire, and that was a place where like Paul Jackson and Mike Clark would play. And you're telling me though, I just want to be clear. You did not cross paths. Garibaldi was down there. That's how he met the Tower guys. But you never crossed paths with him until you reached out to management to get his number. You never saw him.
We never ever crossed paths.
Wow.
At the on Broadway. We both had experiences there, musical ventures, but it was weird because when I met Paul Jackson, I met him through the on Broadway.
They were in a band called The Reality Sandwich.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, man. I mean, this journey has been a great one. And back in that time, it was nowhere you could walk downtown Oakland or in that music area and not hear music. You can go from one club to the next, and you'd hear jazz, you'd hear funk, you'd hear pop, you'd hear whatever kind, salsa. There was Chuck Coke. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Chuck Coke. I meant to say Coke Escovedo.
Oh my God.
And Pete Escovedo. I've run into all of these cats. Azteca. I mean, all of these cats were always in that little mecca down there, and it just was a haven for great talent. The Bay Area has spawned so many great talented musicians. I mean, it's incredible. Prince. Most of the rhythm sections that he's had in his formative years were musicians that were obtained from the Bay Area, which, I mean, it's a beautiful, to me, that's a highlighted, what's the word I'm looking for?
It was
compliment. To the musicians and their abilities, because Prince would come through town and happen to go hear a gig, and he started pulling cats. I want to audition you. I want to, and they'd be down in Minnesota and be down there for years doing what they're doing. And man, Levi, what's his last name? Guitar player, guitar player / bass player. He was with Prince for forever, and you picked him up right out of the Bay. So yeah, man, it's been an amazing journey. It really has.
What?
It really is.
Yeah. No, I kind of wanted you to just talk about your concept of I talked to guys like Tootie Heath. I've done so much. My show has really become about rhythm, and I've interviewed so many drummers. And he just said, the foot is not used the way it used to be in improvisational music. And I kind of wanted you to. I hear a lot of pulsating double bass drum work now. It's boom, boom, boom. There's not a lot of chop. And how did you learn to nuance the bass drum, feather the bass drum? Did you play stone jazz gigs, or were you able to? Because, there's a lot of, going back to Garibaldi, but knowing that you came from the same generation and had that same kind of ingenuity. There's cats that were like jazz snobs, and when they started to listen to Tower, for instance, they lost that snobism because it was like sophisticated funk. And could you talk about? And I'm talking like these are like younger drummers now who are on the circuit playing organ jazz, but they really have chops. And can you talk about how your concept of how to use the bass drum for rebound and feel as opposed to just boom, 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 boom?
I got into that a lot later. The techniques that started really becoming much more user-friendly or usable started to become with a heel-toe concept. When I was studying with Chuck wanted me to, I played on my toe exclusively when I went to Chuck. And it had its good points, but a lot of bad points. One of the bad points would be injury to your body, just the shock going from your foot, your ankle, into your hip joint over time could create some joint problems. And even in my case, it did. But later on, I started finding ways to get around that. But when I was studying with him, he wanted me to play heel down exclusively. And I was like, hey, Chuck, I see how it feels a little bit more solid, when you're sitting down and you got both your heels. You got your left heel on your hi-hat. I play conventional right-handed, but I am a left-handed drummer. And I put my heel down on my bass pedal, and I could feel the center a lot better. When you play with one foot down, which is your hi-hat, unless you're doing eighth notes and 16th notes, then quite naturally you want to get on the ball, at least for me. And I would be on the ball of my bass drum foot. It was almost like a balancing act. So you'd have to get all of your little syncopations correct between the hi-hat, if you got the hi-hat clock and eighth notes, and whatever you're playing in between rhythmically, it had to bounce in between your hi-hat notes and your bass notes. Sometimes would play together, sometimes they play before it, sometimes they play after. But all that had to work in sync together. So as I kept getting more involved, trying to get like fusion and get into more higher level play, I started to have to change that technique. And I got into this thing where it's like your toe hits, you slide your foot down on the footboard, and you get another contact from the beater, and it gives like a da 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 da, and you work that until you can play it at any kind of feel, any kind of tempo, and it really made things a lot easier. It's hard to get it down, but once you get it down, it really brings a whole lot more to your foot capability. So that was a good step in the right direction. So it was partly what I started off playing with was on my toe, and partly what Chuck was trying to retrain me to play with my heel down. But it's a combination of both. It's a combination of both now. So now you can do little 3/16 notes and nice quarter note triplets with your foot, and it's effortless. If you were just in one place doing it on the pedal, you can still pull it off, but it can be a little iffy sometimes depending on what are you coming out of. If you're starting it at the top of the bar, or you're in the middle of the bar, whatever it might be. So yeah, when you got that extra technique down, it really made life a lot easier. It really did. So I hope that.
Well, no, it's great. In some ways, it's like I remember. do you feel like Chuck was okay with? Do you feel like it's okay for people to change somebody's style if they have something working with their feet? I'm just curious about that.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something about Chuck. Chuck was a disciplinarian, and he didn't play. I mean, it was like being in boot camp, and I loved it. I mean, and another great drummer that I should have mentioned as well was Mike Shreves. He was a student of Chuck's as well, and what you really got to understand about Chuck, he gives you all the tools. Now, how you end up using them on the street is really going to be on you. You know what I mean? But he's giving you all the right tools to build whatever style of play you want. But you got to be smart about it, because if you don't, you're going to just be wasting time and money. So you couldn't not, I would go home and diligently practice with my heel down. Oh, no, trust and believe, because if I came back the next week and I looked the same as the day that he was introducing something new to me and he didn't see any change, he wouldn't even, I couldn't even study.
Wow.
It's all right, go home. I mean, he was just that strict. And if it was something where he just felt like you were not trying to, come aboard with what he was training you, he would not take you as a student at all. He would actually not train you.
Right.
So, I really dug that about Chuck. Chuck didn't play. He was serious about it. So I learned so much. When I got to Chuck, I had calluses on my thumbs from doing, I used to play conventional, right?
Right.
And when I would hit the snare drum, I'd hit it so hard that, my thumb, I had a big knot on my thumb. And within, I'd say 4 months, 3 to 4 months, my finger was no sign of a callus, because he taught me this technique with my hands called tension release. Grip the stick, when just before you hit the drum, you release it. Man, it made all the difference in my. I just couldn't believe it was night and day. It was night and day. So there again, he had to see that you were actually making these efforts to learn these techniques, or else he wouldn't mess with you. And so I had to do it. I mean, and we used to practice on a little practice pad, and the dot was no bigger than a 50-cent piece. So when you were doing all your rudiments, you had to play on that dot. That was it. He had a little pad, a little practice pad set up in his practice room. But when he would have you on your pad, that's what you're playing on. A little round 50-cent rubber pad.
Well, when I just saw Tower of Power when they came through in Phoenix, and I did a Facebook Live interview with Garibaldi, and then did one with Doc Kupka, and then after I was done, 15 minutes before the gig, Garibaldi came in to catch a hang, and there he is on his practice pad, just working it out, and
right.
And I think that still goes on today with younger. I see younger cats, but David talked about Sandy McKee and and Sparks, Willie Sparks, and
yes, sir.
Shreve and Michael Clark and George Marsh, and the names go on and on and on.
Man.
But he would say if somebody came up to him after a gig and was like, "Hey man, you sounded great. You sounded just like," he's like, "I'd want to slit my wrists." Like that was like it was not he wasn't, and I'm curious, like, what was it about? When did, like, on your own journey, how because like today it's really hard to tell who's like with younger peeps. There's so much people that are comping stuff because there's
similarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was it about that individualism that got you guys like a bug out there, man? Everybody had their own. Look, just for your own journey, I want you to talk about.
I know it. It's very easy. I can sum it up. My name is Harvey Hughes, and the way I play is the way Harvey Hughes plays. So I made it just that cut and dry. I mean, I would go hear somebody and go, "Man, you sounded great. Man, I love this. I love that." But I would still go home and I would play, even if I had an interpretation of what that person did. I'm going to do it the Harvey Hughes way. I'm not going to do it that person's way. I'm going to do it my way. So case in point, let's say there was a band that sounded like Tower of Power, for example. I'm not talking about Tower. I'm just saying a copy band, a cover band. I'm going to play all the same stuff, but it's not going to sound like David Garibaldi. I'm going to play it like Harvey Hughes would approach David Garibaldi playing Tower Power music. Does that make sense?
Subtle. What would be, if as in lay terms, what would be those subtle Harvey Hughes nuances that would separate it out?
Well, I'm not as technical as David, and I wouldn't try to be.
Nobody wants to be. Yeah, no one could even come close to that.
Oh man, I've seen cats do it though, but I wouldn't. But that would not be my approach.
Right.
So, simply said that you would still get the feel of all the rhythmic, syncopated stuff, but it would not sound so quite as precise and technical on the edge. It would still, you would know what it is.
Right.
I could definitely make you know what it is, but it would definitely say, man, that's different. He's playing it. It's close, but it's not. No, and that's how I want it to be. Because everything that I've ever done, I always wanted to make it my own. I did not want to sound, exactly like Purdy or anybody, Clyde Stubblefield. I wanted to sound like myself. So if I did a copy of a song or of a Aretha Franklin song and Bernard Purdy was playing the song, I would still play the licks. But if I led out of it, I'm going to lead out of it my way. If I lead into it, I'm not going to do the standard feel that takes you right back to the time that he recorded that song. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to play it, and you're going to know that it's the remnants of that song, but you're going to know that I did it my way. And that's just me.
Well,
I've always been that way.
We're cooking.
Always been that way.
We're cooking here with Harvey Hughes. Let's put a piece of music in here, and we'll come back and break down the styles of Harvey Hughes. Okay.
Did you find the note that I left you early this morning? Or by the look on my face, could you tell what was on my mind? Well, I just wanted to say, you bring sunshine into my day, and I can't hold this feeling back anymore. I got happiness each and every day, and I love you in a special way, and I hope this feeling will never, never die. I got happiness each and every day, and I love you in a special way, and I hope this feeling will never, never die. I think
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, Butch Diggs of Diggs Dental, Craig Pretzinger of Allstate Insurance, and the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona. And we thank them for their support. It's so funny, Harvey, because as we're cranking that beautiful Cold Blood tune, Lydia Pence, I Got Happiness, Domingo Ballantyne is private messaging me saying, "Hey Jake, I'm trying to listen to you and Harvey. I can't find it." Now I just sent him the link, literally as that's playing, and so that's the rhythm section there. I wanted you to talk to the audience about. I mean that was more of a soul and a ballad groove tune, but I want you to just talk about how you learned to where you got the ability to play a shuffle beat.
Shuffle beat. Oh my God.
I mean, because that wasn't a shuffle, but I mean
that
I mean, well, here's the thing: you don't hear the shuffle in jazz anymore. What's interesting is like whether it's Sonny Rollins or Tootie Heath or Charlie Neville or John Coltrane.
Yeah.
Those guys all started on the R&B circuit. It was R&B before bebop, okay? So the blues was right alongside the jazz. You were not that far removed from that. So therefore you were incorporating the shuffle into the music you were playing. I wanted you to talk about the opportunity you had to really get that down to make it feel really good.
Well, the only thing I could probably attribute that to is that when like in that group Rhythm, Extension 5.
Yeah.
We played all of the major hits of the time. So if we were doing Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, if we were doing the OJs, if we were doing
Curtis Mayfield,
Curtis Mayfield,
Impressions,
any of those guys, we would actually nail that stuff, right? Because you got people coming to see you 5 days a week. And they wanted to feel like they were listening to the groups that you were emulating. So in those instances, we learned all the MFSB grooves.
Sure. Oh, yeah, those Vince Montana grooves, Philadelphia
that.
International. And you had to learn all that stuff.
Exactly. And it got to be so common and so easy to do that once you knew the artist, you already knew the approach. The approach pretty much dictated the artist, and vice versa. So it was second nature. That particular song that you played, I had the pleasure of writing for Lydia.
Really?
My bass, yes, I wrote that song. I've Got Happiness. Actually, I wrote that one, and it was one other one. What was that?
You wrote the. You're telling me you wrote the chord changes and everything, and the horn parts and everything.
No, I can't take that much credit. I wish I could. No, with the great musicianship of all of those players, Raul Matute, Max Haskell, who's no longer with us, David Hull, Skip Mesquite, who again is no longer with us. I mean, we had Michael Sasaki, Domingo Ballantyne. All of us had contributed in arranging the song. I brought them the actual music. I mean, not music, but the lyrics to the song and the flow. And I sang a little bit. So I sung it, and they kind of got an idea for the melody. Raul took off with chords, and Mike Sasaki, they took off with all the choral stuff. The horns, man, those cats were so masterful. It didn't take them but maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and they had all the little turnarounds and the little ad-lib parts they wanted to put. It was magic. It was just magic, man. I couldn't believe how well that song went together with really no lead sheets, no, there was nothing written out. It was just from
but that's heart. The way. I mean, that's the way the most special music comes. I mean, it's not made up, but it's just like I remember Gene Page, or I remember talking to David T. Walker in one of our interviews, and he was like, Gene Page would come in, it would be Ed Green, David T. and Wilton Felder, and there were no arrangements. It was just he'd give them some chord changes, and then he'd go to Ed Green and say, "This is the kind of like the feel that this is kind of what I want. I'm looking for the feel." And that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was allowing the creative source It was not micromanaging, and I think that that's the biggest issue my generation has from leadership point of view is it's this micromanaging where the leader seems that they need to be responsible for what everybody's playing when in fact that's just going to stifle the creativity.
It will. I agree with you 100% on that, Jake. I do.
You know,
I think that everybody has a gift, and if you allow that gift to have an input into whatever music that you're doing, you'll come away with probably more than what you went in with.
Absolutely.
You probably would. So it's just giving away the ability of allowing other people to contribute. When you take that away, you are stifling. You're telling everybody, I want it to sound just the way I want to sound. That's not good. I love writing. I still do it today. And again, I don't write any charts or lead sheets. I'm basically a lyricist.
Sure.
I come up with lyrics and melodies, and I hear the melodies in my head. I can't play them, but I sure can sing them to you. And if I can get anybody that can just pick the notes out of what I'm singing, they already have the melody, and then I tell them, embellish it. You make it your own. And they do. And when I give them that creativity, they become one with the song without me saying, no, it has to be this kind of chord. It sounds too straight. I want it to sound more like, no, I don't do that. I let them find the source within themselves. Because once they hear the music back, they can hear if it should be a major chord versus a minor chord. They can hear it because they got the same ears that I have.
I mean, did you always in studio work, like was it Paramount, especially with Cold Blood, or any of the sessions where there were no baffles, you could see everybody? I often wonder, I mean, I was born in 78, but it's like, when they created a drum booth, for instance, and everybody started to sort of get cut off from each other. I mean, I don't know, you listen to Jazz Crusaders music, or exactly. You listen to any of those bands, nobody was there were no baffles around. You were looking at each other. It was feeling good. Jamerson, Pistol Out.
Right.
And like, did you always make it a point, when you had that, if you had that control or autonomy to say, yay, man, let's all hit together in one room? Or did you actually have to experience that sort of separation? And what was that? How did that hurt the music, if at all?
Well, what really changed it was technology.
Right.
What they started finding, Jake, earlier on, when you'd get a take, everybody had to be spot on their performance. If one person got off, everybody had to do the song over again. So it needed to say they were trying to find a way to minimize that, because if you didn't done 20 takes on one song, now you're burning out 4 other cats or 3 other cats because you keep making the same little silly mistake. So what they started doing, they figured out, well, look, if we can isolate the drummer and we can isolate run the guitars and the keyboards straight through the board, so they have their own channel and there's no bleed through, and the drums are not going to get on the guitar track and the guitars are going to get on the snare track. If we can get all that worked out, sorted out, then even if you make a little mistake, well, guess what? It's only you that made the mistake. Has to go back and clean it up.
Right.
I've done sessions, and I'm not going to mention any names, where I got called in to do a session for someone else that had did a session, right?
Right. I
had no idea who the person was, any of that. They say, hey, man, look, we got this drum track, and they played a song for me and let you hear it, and if you want to sit down and just run it a couple of times in your headphones and kind of get a feel for what it is. But what we're going to do is when it's time to record, I'm going to take these drums off and you're going to play. It's going to be you. And I remember the first time that happened to me, I was like, man, this is kind of weird, but it's different. But I guess I can do it. 'Cause everything was there. The count was there, the bass, the keyboards. Everything, all the instrumentation was there. So all they did was muted the drums or deleted the drums or whatever it did, and had me play over the track. And I did that at Fantasy. That's all I'm going to say. I did it at Fantasy Studios, and it turned out to be a great track. Then I got called back to play on the whole album, the next album that was produced for that person. And that person is no longer with us. His name was Sylvester. I don't know if you're familiar with.
This is unbelievable. The Mercurial Sylvester.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. So I don't know who the drummer was. I don't want to know because I respect all musicians, and I love all. Matter of fact, I wanted to mention a guy that I think you really, if you haven't already connected with, you should. He's from the Bay Area. He is an Oakland native. His name is Michael Rogers.
Oh, I've not connected. Well, help me out. People to people, man, person to person.
Mike Rogers is a beast. A lot of folks don't know that. And Mike has been around for years. So I talked to Mike and I told him that I was, hopefully going to be able to do a radio interview with you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, man, I wanted to know if it's okay if I mentioned your name. He said, oh, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it. I kept my word. Mike, if you're listening, I got you in there. That's your shout out. But no, man, and he is a great drummer. He's played with a lot of great players, a lot of great artists traveling, here and abroad. And, Harold Longwood, they call him Pockets. Man, he is the epitome of groove because that's what he does. If you want pocket, you call Pockets. That's who you. So, I mean, it's that kind of thing that's going on, man, in the Bay. Everybody has their own highlighted specialty. You know what I mean? And hopefully you fit in that genre of style of music that you're called to play. But man, it's so much great talent here in the Bay Area. I can't state that enough. Even starting as little as 4 and 5 years old. So it's phenomenal. I don't know if it's in the water, the air.
Well, I mean, no. It's just the fact is that there was a huge migration of displaced African Americans after that came out for work.
You could say it.
It came out for work.
Slavery, all that.
Well, I mean, came out for work.
Yeah.
There were gigs, during World War II. But did you know cats like John Turk and those cats? I mean, were you aware of that?
Do I?
Well, no. What I'm getting at is, I mean, Johnny.
Of course.
The reason, I mean, I just went to see in San Jose, and I caught a Facebook hang with Domingo. Caught one with Clifford Coulter, Ronnie Beck.
Yes,
but
Ronnie
I mean,
Beck, yes.
All right, but
yes.
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 I mean, I'm talking like people were like they said there was no bigger stud than John Turk. I mean, the ladies were back in the day. The ladies were lining up. He was playing trumpet with one hand, and he was playing organ with the other.
The organ with the other.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Where were you?
Yes,
like,
sir.
what kind of band were you beyond Extension 5? I mean, what were the other crazy funk jazz bands that you were in at that time? I mean, you were talking before about the last night on the phone with me about this quartet that you had in like '74. But I'm just trying to get at this idea of like.
Okay,
yeah.
If you want to walk down that street, I'll take you. I used to play with a group called Chromatics.
Oh my God.
That was a vocal group that was, they would scare you. I mean, they were like everybody that they sang like. Then I went on to this group called Jump Street. There was a group. It was a composite band, believe it or not. It had Bruce Conti from Tower Power, Victor Conti, his cousin from Tower Power. At that time, there was a era in there where Rocco wasn't with the group, and Victor was playing bass for Tower.
Right.
Nate Ginsburg.
Dude, I've interviewed Nate, dude. I can't believe you're driving. First of all, Victor.
Victor Conte.
And you referred to him. Was that Bruce's cousin, or because you?
Cousin. That's his cousin. No,
dude,
yeah.
I need to Victor. I need to find immediately.
That's not a problem. He's still here in the Bay Area.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Yeah,
I know he is.
As a matter of fact, Nate is married to Victor's sister. So if you got contact to Nate Ginsburg, that's all you got to do. Say, hey, I need to get in touch with Victor. And I don't have Victor's phone number. If I had it, I would.
Hey, don't worry about it. No, so I mean, these groups.
Yeah.
I mean, like Jump Street. Was that?
Yeah. I also wanted to mention Coleman Head out of Clovis and Visalia, down that area, Fresno. Bad country style guitarist with the gravel pit vocals, and We had Gavin Christopher. He was the lead vocalist, and he had played with Shaka Khan and wrote some of the great hits that Shaka had. Once You Get Started and Life Is a Dance. That was Gavin Christopher. You wrote those songs. That particular group that I mentioned, Jump Street, was actually managed by David Rubenstein from the Automat, and then that's how how Gavin got to sing the first and only vocal song on Herbie Hancock's album, and that's the only song that I to this day know that he has recorded with a vocalist. Herbie Hancock is Gavin Christopher, and the name of the song is "Tears in Your Eyes."
Well, you know what's fun. Because you know what's funny. What do you have any idea roughly what year that was?
It probably early '80s.
Because I was going to say it coincides very. Because Herbie also went in the studio at around that time with Larry Klein, the bass player, who at the time was married to Joni Mitchell, and Joni was doing an album with and Herbie went to Larry's like, I've never played with a vocalist. So it was around that same time that he was doing. He did he did an album with Joni as well. So this,
Gavin Christopher. He passed away too. He's gone. I think he passed away a year or two ago.
Who was the cat? Who was the first cat you were talking about? Down in Fresno, the country guitar.
The guitarist?
Yeah.
What did I say?
It'll come to you. Is he still with us though? Because that I would love to talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
Whatever his name is escaping you. But no, we'll debrief it. But I mean,
Nate knows. If you talk to Nate again, he knows exactly all the members.
Oh,
I don't know why I can't think of it.
I've talked to Nate. I can't. Jump Street.
I'm not finished. If you want more, here we go.
Hit me.
Malo. You remember Malo?
Of course.
Suavecito.
The best. Hadley Callman was in that. Jorge Santana.
I was there with Yogi and some other guys. I can't remember all their names. I think Richard Bean was there when I was there. So, yeah, I did that. I did the Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch tours with them. Oh, man. Who am I missing? And see, I should have wrote a lot of this stuff down.
It's okay. We can also. I mean, we can. This is just part. This is just set one, and I wanted you to talk as we wrap up set one here, Harvey. Just in general, the idea that it wasn't just that there was a brotherhood. It was that people would come and support. Regular peeps would come and support the music. And I feel like in our culture today, which is very scary, we've become a big civilization with very little culture. And I wanted you to talk about how the significance of music in your mind has changed as it relates to the spiritual quality of music, as it relates to the danceability of music, and ultimately what people... What are their intentions for getting into music? Because when you guys were starting out, it was about creating really good music, and so just riff on that any way you want.
Well, I'm not here to bash anybody's creativity, but I am here to make known the styles and the quality of music that was worked on back in the earlier years, that musicians really took the art form seriously. So, say for an example, if it was a keyboard player, they learned their instruments. They knew how to transpose music. They knew how to play in different keys and all the things that really made you a great pianist or a great keyboardist. Okay, you really took pride in your music. Nowadays, you can go buy a machine. Now, I'm not knocking these folks for their creativity and their artistry, and these machines are full of sampled sounds, some with voices, some with just rhythms, some with whole tracks. And they'll come up with a little something, and just make a song out of it, loop it. I've seen people on YouTube put a song together in less than 3 minutes, and and some of these songs can actually be hits today the way they write songs now. But all I can say is we're in the now time era. Everything is like we want everything now. You know, you got microwave. You want you
right.
cook it in
Right. It's
7 minutes,
instantaneous.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the mentality is pushed everything to be like that. You know, where before it might take 6 months to do a real good album. Now it's unheard of. It would take you to do an album in 6 months. You know, because just even the cost would be astronomical. It's like, who's going to spend $500,000 for you to sit up there and think about a song?
Well, but also it's like this. It's like also like in the past the whole incentive for cutting an album would be then, okay, we can go on tour and promote the album, and there's no real touring circuit anymore. So I mean, it's a very, I mean, you have to be extremely nimble. But just in general, do you believe it's when you look at the construct today, is it a supply and demand issue, meaning there are more musicians than clubs? Is it the fact or is it a fact that people are much more willing to sort of encapsulate themselves in their own home studios as opposed to going out and supporting or knowing what music?
I would say a little bit of it all. You know, I mean, it's the sign of the times, Jake. I mean, people don't, you don't have any real record companies anymore. I mean, where like you had CBS and Arista and Columbia and all that kind of stuff. People are selling their CDs, on the street, out of the trunk of their cars. I mean, they go home and go to the Guitar Center and they pick up, a little, recording device and get all the stuff they need and, a couple of microphones and put up a little baffle and buy one keyboard and they'll do everything. They got the drums and they got it's like right now we can do this for under $2,500. You can have your own studio, and then you can give a CD baby, and they have these little promotions where they can press however many CDs you need done and get your mastering done, and it's the sign of the time. A&R people, that's almost unheard of. I mean,
yeah. Well, so even though we're in that time now, what still gives you hope for the future of new? What's the best way to create new musical vocabulary in this time?
But you know what? For me, I can't speak for anyone else.
Sure.
But the love of music has been in my soul since inception. I have been. I knew when I was 5 years old I wanted to do music. I knew it, and it's never left, Jake. I love it just as much then as I do now. It's never left. So for me, I'm going to continue to do it the old school way. I probably won't reach the heights because of the way all the people can get out there and do stuff. You get so many YouTube hits on and now you're a superstar overnight.
Well, and it doesn't even speak to the fact that, if you look a certain way and have a certain amount of followers or a vibe, you don't even have to be a good musician to actually be a superstar, which is, so it's a kind of perverse situation. But so, I mean, when you say you love the music and you're going to continue to do it, what's your advice to younger cats out there who don't have the experience and the bandstand experience and sort of the life experience that you have? What would be your advice to them? Don't get into it unless it's a calling. What are you really saying to younger people?
No. I would say if they really are drawn to music, one, always learn your craft. You're never going to go wrong when you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay, but even if you take a different approach, to electronics and modern technology today to get it done quick, there's nothing wrong with that. But where you can really enhance and still stand out above the rest is that your music can have more depth, more meaning, and more feeling. And you could really probably gain more notoriety if you can apply that to the new wave of music today. That's all I would say. But I'm not knocking either one.
No. It's all cyclical. It's just cats like yourself who are who learned from the original masters, and you're now the lineage for future generations. So, but actions speak louder than words, and I'm doing my part to make sure that that musical vocabulary can expand, and that most importantly, we don't lose our culture. We don't lose where we came from, because if you don't know where you came from, then you don't know where you're going, and you can see the crises that our country is in right now. And part of it's the fact that a lot of people don't understand the roots of where they came from. So,
that's right.
Harvey, it was such an honor to finally connect with you. I had a ball. I hope you had a good time, man. And
I did, man.
Yeah, man. And
I'm honored that you even gave me the time, man. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, we'll do it again.
And for anybody out there that's listening to this, and Harvey Hughes knows you, and I know you, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing, and don't stop until you can't do it no more. That's what I'm gonna tell you.
I wanna just, before I let you go, I'm looking here, and I see this. There's only one Harvey Hughes, and the background is a younger gentleman with the backdrop of "From Congo Square, to everywhere." Is that you?
Wait a minute. Say that one more time.
I searched you on Facebook, Harvey Hughes.
On Facebook, okay.
All right, and there's one Harvey Hughes that pops up, but it looks to be a younger gentleman, and the background is a picture of Louis Armstrong. It says "From Congo Square to everywhere."
No.
Yeah. So
No. If you want me,
yeah,
you pull it up. You'll see me in a white suit. It's really like a pantsuit type deal, and I'm playing drums. I'm in a playing position.
Right. I'm just wondering.
I'm not showing any hair. I'm bald headed, and you can't miss me. And it'll say Sassoon City as far as my where I'm living. So it's got to be more than one Harvey Hughes if it's on Facebook.
I'm just letting you know that I used to see that, and I don't know if we by mistake you blocked me or whatnot, but now it's none of those is coming up. There's
okay.
So
what I'll do is I'll go through my list and see. Because if I did block you, it's only because I didn't know.
Of course, no. I mean, I think absolutely. Because I was tagging you in some posts, and you might have blocked. So yeah, check. It's Jake D. Feinberg. Make sure we become friends, because I'm going to be taking these stories. Who's ever listening now, or whoever is eventually going to listen to the post, is beautiful, but not everybody's going to. Not everybody's going to have the time. So the stories will be transcribed and put up on Facebook and blasted all over the place. So I want to make sure that I can tag you in them, because you're the one telling them.
So, Jake, what was the middle initial?
Jake D. Feinberg, Feinber.
Gotcha.
So friend me, and then I'll confirm it, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, I had a ball with you, man. Thank you to Domingo Ballantyne for connecting us after a long time, and
yes, sir.
Keep swinging, man. So great to hear your voice.
Thank you so much, and keep playing yourself.
I am.
I understand you're a drummer, right?
Absolutely. I'm having a ball. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all right.
Yep, gonna go.
Keep hitting, man. Keep hitting.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Later on. Another day in the books here on the Jake Feinberg Show. I've heard from Spring Washam, a great spiritualist and a teacher, and then just a great rhythmist. The great Harvey Hughes from the Bay Area, dropping knowledge on all of us. And we'll be back tomorrow with Alex Litcherwood on the Jake Feinberg Show. Until then, peace.